Hi there, very good morning to all our viewers. Welcome to the market right here on 89, the Mumbai News Centre. I'm Tanveer Gill with Nikunj Dalmi as well as Siddharth Bhambre, preparing you for trade this morning. And it is going to be a tricky morning of trade given the cues that we've been handed with. Yes, Dow Jones futures have shown stability now at last count. But remember, so much has happened overnight in lieu of Italy's political crisis, what that would mean for the existence of the European Union. And what that would mean for the currency in the euro. It's really a scare that gripped world markets. This morning, however, stepping into trade, it seems like some of the concerns have receded, or at least the sentiment has somewhat found its stability. But it's still, a no man's land, so to speak, where one can't really bring up all the scenarios that can play out possibly over the course of the next few weeks. Whether or not they will be able to defend a government at the centre in Italy is a big question mark. And more importantly, Italy's economic conditions have been deteriorating very fast. How that would have an impact on the rest of the region is also a big worry point. But this morning, Nikunj, I think stepping into trade, things have stabilized over the last 12 hours.
See, Tanveer, if you are a skeptic, you would say the problem in Italy is real. It's a large economy. Can it mint global financial crisis? If Greece, which was a much smaller economy, was able to roil the existence of European Union and it threatened a EU breakup, if something goes wrong in Italy, the implications of that could be far bigger and far greater. But I think the way positioning of global financial markets is, the way alignment between top political leaders is, nobody wants to shock the financial markets right now. So some resolution should come in sight, but the challenge with this Italian problem is that the numbers are so large that you just cannot ignore them, and that in a sense is injecting this extra dimension of volatility. I mean, we know that what impact Greece had a couple of years ago and how it really shook the core foundation of EU, and it had a large impact on financial markets. Now, having said that, Italy has seen problems in the past, and the world and the European Union has not got divided, or EU, the existence of EU is still there. So my sense is that the Italian problem is important, it is crucial, but this is not the end of the world. But if you are a die-hard bull, you would say, look, all because of the problem in Italy, crude prices have come down, US 10-year paper has come down. It could really force Fed to rethink their rate stance. So you can argue both ways, but yes, the problem in Italy is something you cannot sugarcoat because the numbers are so large. I mean, imagine the impact Greece had on the world. And if I compare Greece and Italy, Greece was much smaller both in terms of size, population, and the importance it had for the European Union.
You know, the Moody's is threatening a further downgrade for Italy, and I wonder whether that even comes as a surprise, because this problem is not about this month, last month, a few months back. It's not about one election. It's really about a deep economic downturn which hasn't been, which the government in Italy has not been able to arrest for a while to come now. I mean, look at their unemployment rates, look at what's happening with their deficit, with the debt levels in Italy. It's a mess. James Glassman, who's MD at JP Morgan Chase, joins us from New York. James, it's great to have you on the show. What spooked the markets? I know that there is a scare of the coalition not being able to stand ground, and there being early elections again. But at the core, the economy of Italy has been an area of contention and has been a problem area for a while now.
Yes, that's true. And there are lots of problems, but the truth is Italy is making progress. I mean, their unemployment is coming down. It's higher than it is for the region as a whole, and the growth is slower. But the truth is, this is a long-running story, and I think the reason the market's reacting the way it is, as you said, it's a big story. If it should turn out to be a referendum on leaving the European Union or not, I stand back and I ask myself, I think most Italians have to ask themselves, are they better off in the Union or out? And I think common sense tells you, for all the complaints they have, the European Union has been an important experiment for Italy, and they've been benefiting. And I think the political players, there's a lot of Euroscepticism brewing, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to find out that the Italians understand they're better off in the family than to be on their own. I can't imagine what they would have to deal with if they decided to exit the European Union. I mean, and I think to myself, the origins of this experiment, the Treaty of Rome. Italy was an important player in the beginning of this. So I think you're probably right that the economy is not doing as well as the broad region, and that creates all kinds of stresses, and there are immigration issues with Italy, and that's causing. But I think this is largely a political crisis more than an economic crisis, as long as it doesn't get us to the stage of having to worry that Italy may leave the European Union, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Seth Freeman, good morning to you as well, and thank you for joining us. Seth, the Italian economy is 10 times larger than that of Greece, and if Greece in a sense shook the core foundation of European Union a couple of years ago, do you think the problem in Italy could disturb and could keep everyone guessing?
Yeah, I think the chance of Italy leaving the euro is probably close to zero.
That was a very firm no according to you, but James, one side you've got this wrinkle which has surfaced up in European Union, other side you've got sell-off which has happened in emerging market currencies, and on top of that you've got the US 10-year paper which has suddenly gone below 3%. So how should we understand the global dynamics, because there are just too many moving parts suddenly, James?
Yeah, and right now it's this political crisis in Italy that's sort of shaken the markets. It's been the rising rates in the U.S. Gradual, but it's rising that has been creating some of the outflow or the less inflow to emerging markets. But I think the world would be, you look at the U.S. economy, the world would be in much worse shape if the central bank in the U.S. failed to normalize interest rates when the economy is running pretty hot. And we haven't seen a lot of the stimulus that's been flowing through yet. We got unemployment very low. So I think maybe it's a challenge. The biggest challenge I think is the normalization of interest rates in the U.S. But I think this crisis actually in Europe may temper things a little bit, because the market realizes there are stresses elsewhere, and that does limit how far long-term interest rates are going to move up in the U.S. So we've seen the 10-year yield come back down a bit. That should be some stabilizing force.
Right.
I think the real story, though, that matters is the global economy is in pretty good shape, and inflation is fairly well behaved. And I think with that as a backdrop, it's hard to see how this could turn into something derail the global recovery that's been underway.
Seth, do you concur with that? It may have been a scare for a few hours and may have plummeted the Dow for one session, but it won't go beyond that, no matter how worse things may get on the political front for Italy, because it's not like an exit is in the realms of possibility. They can't survive on their own.
Well, the Italian economy itself has some structural problems. Part of what we're looking at is a lot of immigration from the Middle East in Italy, that's where some of this nationalistic feeling comes from. But it's also interesting that the situation, I believe, is being tempered somewhat by the fact that oil prices subsided slightly, and the oil-producing nations are going to open the spigot a little bit more. This is going to have a nice buffer. But I do agree with the assessment that we can't forget how interconnected and global our economies are, and we can have this, what I really do think is kind of a short-term problem in Italy, and how that can impact our markets here in the U.S. and flows to India.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate your time.